Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics, in association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. All right, so here we are. Let's chat. We have an international panel today. Really excited to get this group together and showcase the work that's being done globally. We're represented here, myself in Canada. We have a guest from the US, a guest in Ireland, and a guest in the UK. And let's jump right in. We'll get to the bio. We are the official podcast of WFAT. Really, really excited to be that, but more excited to share all of the work that our three guests are currently doing and share it with the world of athletic therapy and athletic training and multiple levels and facets of the performance space, human performance and practitioner performance in the space. So we'll start with Tanya Marquez. She's been a certified athletic trainer since 1999. She received her Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science with an emphasis in athletic training from the Ohio State University in 1999 and her Master of Science in Athletic Training from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in 2001. In 2013, Tanya became an inaugural member of the Illinois ATs Care Team, which we will jump into. It's really, really critical and important for all of us. And since 2015, has served as its chair. She serves as the Great Lakes Athletic Trainers Association ATs Committee Co-Chair and is the NATA ATs Care Commission's District 11 representative. We'll find out more about all of these things as we get going. I think it's really, really critical, again, to understand what we're doing within the profession and also how to support one another. And Tanya is certainly doing the work and pushing that out there. She's also an assisting individuals in crisis instructor for the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. Professionally, she's worked in a variety of settings over the years, from Division 1 and 3 collegiate positions to clinic outreach and high school positions, and she has also held numerous PRN positions. Currently, she serves as Alert Services Resource Center Manager and leads the development of continuing education resources for customers and athletic trainers across the United States. Tanya, welcome. We'll certainly be hearing from you shortly. We'll just run through the bios here and then jump into conversation. But ATs Care, a lot of work supporting ATs and understanding what the profession entails, not only in terms of what we're giving, but what we need to do as practitioners to support one another and ourselves. Our next guest is Dr. Siobhan O'Connor, an associate professor in the School of Health and Human Performance, Dublin City University, and lectures in the BSc Athletic Therapy and Training program. She's a certified athletic therapist and member of ARTI, which is the Athletic Rehabilitation Therapy Ireland, the governing body for Irish certified athletic therapists. She was the vice president of ARTI from its conception in 2009 until 2017 and played a key role in the development of it and the profession in Ireland. Dr. O'Connor has a keen interest in developing the athletic therapy profession internationally and currently serves as the vice president of WFAT. She teaches primarily in the area of injury prevention and clinical practice and is an active researcher and co-director of the Center for Injury Prevention and Performance and researches in the field of injury prevention, injury surveillance, clinical practice, clinical education, and mental health. Siobhan, welcome aboard. Look forward to picking your brain and diving into your research and all of the important pieces that overlap with what Tanya's doing and support the profession in Ireland and worldwide. And as we were just saying, sort of in the preamble, World Congress coming up in Tel Aviv, hopefully get an opportunity to overlap with some of the RT professionals and connect globally. So really appreciate you being here. And just last but not least, with the bio, Abby Jade Royal graduated in 2020 as a sports rehabilitator with a first-class honors from the University of Bolton. While undertaking her degree, she volunteered at Rochdale AFC Development Centers and has since progressed through the club since starting there 4 years ago. Psychology has always been a strong love of hers, and she works with athletes on a daily basis. She's found that through her experience, both athletes and practitioners value psychology, so much so that she's decided to advance her academic career by pursuing the master's in sport and exercise psychology. In 2022, she began studying towards a PGCE, which I would love to have you explain to our listeners globally, to gain insight into teaching methods, educational theory, and research. She has experience working in a range of areas professionally, including clinical and professional sports, as well as lecturing at the University of Bolton, where she completed her undergraduate studies. She's currently employed with Rochdale AFC EDS as a sports rehabilitator, mental performance practitioner, and sports tutor. So I think even just reading, welcome, Abby, really appreciate your time from the UK. We're all on different time zones. We're all at different points in our careers. We're all doing different things. But the uniting factor here is that we're all contributing to a profession that makes a difference. It makes a difference to everybody we have opportunity to connect with, everybody that we have an opportunity to share this space with. And maybe just before we get into the nitty gritty of this, I think this could be a podcast session on its own, just simply people researching you as individuals and all the things that you've done. I certainly have, and spent some time, and I look forward to connecting today. And as we again mentioned in the preamble, into the future, some of the things we don't know exist. We don't know that there's a World Congress coming up in Tel Aviv. We don't know what goes on in Ireland. We don't know what goes on in the UK. In North America, we have, fairly similar approaches when it comes to the CATA and the NATA, but again, a uniting front. And so we'll just make our way back to the top. And Tanya, we'll start with you. Same question for everybody as we navigate this before we jump into the actual conversation. But where did your interest in sort of athletic therapy, athletic training start, and then your interest in your current pursuits?
Yeah, so thanks, first of all, for having me. I'm excited to be a part of the conversation today. Really excited about the topic and the importance of it. I've been an athletic trainer, like you mentioned, for almost 25 years now. So it started with my own personal injury. I think, as probably some of us have, that's how I got introduced into the profession. But I've been doing it in some aspect since I was even in high school, and helping my high school athletic trainer. So it's always been a passion, a love. But as I've kind of evolved through the profession, you realize that we're faced with a lot of different situations, right? And critical incidents as we kind of motor through. I think the perception is that we just kind of grin and bear it, and it's part of the job, and it's part of what we accept in our process with all of that. And it's not. And there's other professions that have done a really good job of supporting each other. So basically what happened is in 2013, around that time, and somewhat with the Boston Marathon and all the athletic trainers in the US that were at that site, in 2013, they faced a situation that we weren't prepared to deal with in the aftermath, right? So that's kind of when this idea of how can we support these people, these individuals, and each other in the aftermath of a critical incident. So that's kind of where the whole idea about ATs Care came from. And then the model was as you mentioned, the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. They do a really good job with other professions in terms of first responders, police, fire, across the country, or actually across the world. So we were able to utilize their training and kind of get that started with the NATA, and then even just in smaller sects across the country with our different districts and now our even state-based teams. So exciting work, excited to support peer-to-peer collaboration, especially on the side of mental health for athletic trainers.
Yeah, unbelievable. Really appreciate that. And I think this is a really, obviously a critical time for it, but a critical piece for all of us. It seems, a lot of the statistics that we're dealing with athletes, and we sometimes are guilty of simply pouring ourselves into the people that we work with and forgetting about ourselves. But mental health issues, mental health concerns are certainly on the rise following a pandemic. Maybe the pandemic highlighted it. We won't dive into the why of it, but certainly critical work and work that is really, really important. I have the opportunity to work with a couple interns, and critical incidents arise. Once you have a skill set, the skill set can be utilized anywhere, and sometimes it's outside of sport, or it is something as catastrophic as the Boston Marathon, or simply responding to an accident on the side of the road. And so where do we go? How do we go, and what do we do for support for ourselves and for each other? So really, really critical stuff, and we'll jump in there. Siobhan, same question for you. Where did the interest in the profession and then the interest in the research and all of the amazing things that you're doing right now start from for you?
Yeah, for me, I suppose I was sports mad when I was younger. So when I heard that there was a profession that you could literally watch matches and work with sports teams, I was like, this is amazing. How do I do this? So and I was actually one of the first cohort of students that went through the athletic therapy and training program here in DCU. So it's a brand new profession in Ireland. The organization was just developed in 2009. So I graduated in 2009. So obviously it was really exciting time period because, I was heavily involved in the setup of our organization and, how the profession developed, I was involved with writing our scope of practice and things like that, which is obviously really exciting and really interesting as well. But obviously there's a lot of difficulty with that too, because it is a new profession, in a country that wouldn't be as well established as, in North America, for example. So I think that's what really interested in me in this area. And I suppose from my I'm an educator primarily, and, we talk a lot about stress, burnout and coping and things and how that impacts our patients. But I always kind of at the back of my mind said, what about our clinicians, especially in a new emerging profession like we have here in Ireland? And when I looked at all the data, it's all coming from the US primarily, so we do know that cultural context can really differ. So that really instigated my interest from an Irish perspective. How are our clinicians doing? What's burnout, stress, coping like in our profession? And then I suppose when I had my son, I have a little toddler, Derek, and going back to work after having him, the work family conflict thing, obviously, was of interest to me. So then, that really got me thinking as well, especially a lot of our professionals are self-employed, they work in private practice. So obviously that's a major factor. So that's what really instigated my interest in this area.
Amazing. And some really, really crucial pieces for us as well to investigate, and would love to sort of go back and forth on all these pieces. The growth and progression of a profession, sort of paralleling the growth and progression of what that profession is and what it entails, not only in terms of our hands-on skills and what we're giving on the table, but also in the background, that personal or family professional life. And you bring up a good point. A large percentage of therapists and trainers are self-employed. And so what does that mean when it's spilling into your space and your time is dedicated outside of family life to everybody else? So really appreciate your time and being here, and obviously getting into the evening there. So we'll try to keep it rolling as quickly as possible so you can get home to your little one and all those kind of things. Last but not least, Abby, same question to you. Your interest in the profession and sort of it was highlighted in your bio a little bit as it translated into your studies and the sort of emergence of what psychology is and what it can be in the sporting space. But where did the interest begin for you?
Yeah, so mine was a little bit different. In my first year of uni, I was very unsure on what I wanted to do. I know in the first year, I always make a little bit of a joke out of it. I wanted to drop out and become an air hostess. It wasn't something that I was fully interested in. Whereas I then started to get more and more into the career, and I just realised how much I actually loved it. Doing my volunteering experience at Rochdale, I just fell in love with football and the whole environment, and how the sport can actually work, and even having a passion for football, which I never thought I would have had, which is obviously really, really good. And then I had one player while I was there who suffered from an awful meniscal tear. And throughout his whole rehab process, he was just struggling a little bit mentally. He wasn't sure on what he wanted to do, and his confidence wise was just a little bit all over the place. So that then brought me to actually figuring out why that has happened, what's gone through his mind, which then brought me into the psychology aspect of it, and doing my dissertation and then into my master's as well was just something that I fell in love with and realised that this is definitely something that I want to do. So going through it, then obviously went on and to take my master's, and then now currently studying my PGCE, which I know you said about the translation.
Yeah,
So it's like a postgraduate qualification in education. So the way that it works is it gives you that qualified status for being able to go and teach, whether that be with college students or like university students on that lecturing side as well. So that's definitely been something that has been hard to juggle alongside full-time work, but definitely something that's been really, really beneficial for me as well. So yeah, a lot of different areas, but all very, very enjoyable.
Amazing. And as each one of you is speaking, you know, we're on video, but this is a podcast for the audio's sake, but nodding in agreement with virtually everything that's going on and everything that's being spoken. And I think this is the piece that WFAT is working towards, you know, connecting this worldwide and globally that, you know, Siobhan, you mentioned the cultural context, and that matters, how things are done and why things are done a certain way. But what keeps this sort of the common thread that I keep pulling from each of your stories and how you got here or where and why you got here is the desire to understand how, you know, how this connects. How does a human body or the human or the person, the AT, connect with the material? How does injury happen? How does injury affect the mental status? Just as we would say, you know, at home, if things aren't going well, it spills over into the work, or how do we separate those things? So these pieces of sharing sort of personal experiences as well as athletic experiences, you know, either our own or of the athletes that we deal with or get the opportunity to work with on a daily basis. Yeah, I just think it's amazing, and sort of to hear it from across the globe in the different accents. I mean, I'm over here just giddy to jump in wherever we can. It's brilliant to be able to share this across the globe, and I think all really, really critical work. So where do we start? Let's start right here. I'm going to give you an example of my own because I had this conversation over the weekend, and we'll just see where it goes. We constantly give ourselves to everybody else in what we do as therapists or practitioners or as researchers, whatever the thing is. It's for a greater good, it's for a cause, for something else, or potentially for somebody else. And we tend to forget about the person who's doing all the giving. Tanya, you talked about ATs Care. Give us a rundown on what that is, I guess, to start. Does that only happen? Does it only tapped into or utilized when there is something catastrophic, as you mentioned? Or, you know, what about the day-to-day? Because I'm having conversations now in my 40s, my early 40s, of just sort of, I've accomplished a lot of things professionally, but I'm still growing personally. And one of those things is, how do I take care of myself at this point in time? And how, you know, we take on a little bit of what either our research or our clients or the athletes that we get to work with, you know, bring every day. So ATs Care, let's start there, and then we can spin this off wherever we need to go.
Sure. So I think good point. And Siobhan, I think you mentioned this, like it is way beyond just our profession and what we're dealing with in our athletic training rooms or in our sites, et cetera, on a daily basis. Critical incident is defined as anything that overwhelms your usual coping mechanisms, right? So that could be something in your personal life, you know, it could be a medical diagnosis, it could be children, it could be caring for an older, you know, a loved one in your house, it could be just work stress environment, whatever that might be, as well as these other things that we think of in terms of critical incident, in terms, you know, it's an athlete having a major injury that you're helping them with, it could be CPR that you had to administer, whatever the case may be. But I think the critical piece is it can be beyond those types of incidents, right? It's a personal thing. I say the example of, you know, when in the house you hear, when mom is not happy, nobody's happy, right? And everybody kind of dances. The same as when we walk into our profession, right? When we walk into that world and people can tell, oh, be careful, Tanya's having a rough day. Well, what does that say about what we can do with our patient care and what level we can meet our patients at on that given day? And it's all based on where we are mentally, right? So the idea of ATs Care, it's other athletic trainers that are trained in this critical incident stress management to meet that peer at that point. And who better to understand the nuances of our profession than another athletic trainer, right? You know, our profession is unique just as other professions are unique. Days off are kind of a laugh and a joke. And at least in the United States, you know, work-life balance, that's kind of a misnomer as well. So who to better talk to you and reach out to you and meet you in that kind of critical time than another athletic trainer that's been trained in the model that the ICISF has has trained us in.
Yeah, amazing. And I think sort of like that piece of anything that overwhelms the norm, we may have to look at the norm as well, at least in North America, because the expectation for, and everybody's nodding emphatically, the expectation is, 80-hour weeks and no days off. And I have to be there for everybody else. And if I miss a day, what's going to happen? So how do we share that load? How do we look at that? What is the norm? And I sort of, just as you're talking, taking notes, the hours is what a lot of us pride ourselves on. Is like, look, I'm the one I'm here all the time. I'm stable. I'm the first one in the room. I'm the last one out. And look at, like, my mood never changes. I'm always here for everybody. And these are critical pieces. And like, eventually it turns into overwhelm. And Siobhan, I know you spend a lot of time like looking at burnout and what that means and how that feels and plays out. So maybe I'll direct it your way. Is this something that you look at when it comes to the profession or the professionals? Like, what is burnout? If it's the expectation is just don't burn out, like that's the idea.
And I suppose we have to be realistic too, don't we? I think your point there is really important about the norms of the profession, because just because it is the norms of the profession doesn't have to be your norms, right? And you have to meet yourself, as well. So like, it's really important for, you can't give all the time and not have breaks. You have to have days off, and just because that was normal in the past doesn't mean it has to be normal for the profession into the future. And I think that's a really exciting part of coming from Ireland is it is a new profession. So we can set our own norms and we can do things differently. It is a bit more difficult, obviously, in the US and Canada, where in the UK, the profession has been there longer, but I think that is important for us to, to understand that we can set boundaries and things like that. And I suppose burnout's difficult because it's not usually just one thing. It's not because you stayed late last night or because you're a bit stressed because of this patient. It's a cumulative effect of different stressors, both from home and, from work. It's not all work too, we have to realize it can be a multitude of things. So it's really important for us, I think, to step back, both ourselves individually and us as professions and those, essentially involved in the professions, to think, are we prioritizing the right things? Because everyone's different and everyone prioritizes different things in different phases of life. When you're younger, a young professional, early career, you might be more willing to, prioritize your profession a bit more, but then things might change when you have children or, when you have to care for family or, parents and things like that. So I think just because what was done in the past doesn't mean that's the direction our profession has to take. And also for yourself, just because that's what you've done in the past doesn't mean that's also the direction you have to take. And, I think it's really important for us all, anyone listening to this, because we probably say this to our patients, right? Take stock at regular intervals, because sometimes things creep up on us, doesn't it? We mightn't even realize we're burnt out or really stressed out because slowly things have eaten into the other aspects and you haven't even realized, so I think asking yourself objective questions like, how's my sleep going? When was the last time I laughed? Like something really simple like that. If that has been a while, you need a break and you need to go have a bit of fun, or, do I feel like I'm prioritizing the things that I think matters, like family and friends? And I think these regular questions, if we can just build them into our, not saying every day, but like every month or every few months, I think that'd be really important for us to take. And also just like, what do we want from life? Like, this sounds really philosophical, but it's true. Like, what do we want? Like, what are we happy with? And, and then go from there. I think that's really important for us to do.
Yeah, amazing. And as you asked that question, when did you laugh? How is my sleep? I know at least one pair of eyes went up and to the left, and that was mine. Some of these things, it is the self-reflective pieces and really looking at some of those basics. And the advice that we give to others is usually the best advice, but we're guilty of not taking it a lot of the time. So Abby, in your space, let's spin it a little bit to dealing with athletes and this idea of constantly grinding. That's the term we use in North America, is like go, 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 go. If you're not doing something to contribute to your sport, you're missing the boat. Give us sort of your take on burnout or from the athlete standpoint. What do you hear from athletes, or do you hear that from athletes?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times I've had lads coming in, even to the physio room, and just saying, I'm absolutely knackered. Like, I think it's probably very similar over, like in America and Ireland, you feel a bit guilty for having a day off. I know I definitely do. Like, if I'm not doing something that's going to better myself or better my players or even sometimes better members of my staff, I just feel absolutely awful, and I feel so guilty for doing it. I don't think I can ever switch off, and I know that's definitely the same with some of the players that I treat. We have over here we have like games on a Wednesday and then games on a Saturday and a Sunday, and a lot of the time the lads that are on the bench on the Saturday will then play on a Sunday. And that was something that we realized halfway through the season. The lads are coming in and doing 7-day weeks, and even for the staff, we're quite used to doing like a 7-day week, and the players obviously weren't. And we was like, oh, they'll be fine, they're young, they can bounce back, they're only 16 to 18, they'll be able to do it. And I think we then got to a point in the middle of the season where we're like, we cannot carry on doing this. The athletes are burning out and us as staff are burning out. We go into a day-to-day basis where you're just thinking, I cannot do this today, I'm absolutely knackered. And I think it then obviously transfers over to the players as well. They're thinking they're not in a good mood today, they're absolutely knackered. And especially from the teaching side as well, from me, they just say that you're not feeling yourself. But it's definitely something that we do see a lot, and trying to battle that the lads also need a day off and we need a day off and need the days to recover is something that's really, really difficult, and something that we're definitely trying to battle on our side as well.
Yeah, and you touched on a couple of things of just sort of the piece about if I'm not doing something to get them better, I feel guilty about it. And again, I jump back to sort of what is the advice that we give injury, or what is the advice we give in rehab or training, is the time off or the time away allows me to be better when I come back. And I think, and I see heads nodding, so I'll just sort of leave that as the open sort of forum to how do we empower that? How do we empower the fact that taking time off makes us better? Because there's almost this idea, again, within the norm, that if I take time off, I'm dropping the ball, or I'm not on my game, or whatever the thing might be. So wherever anybody wants to take that one, Siobhan.
Yeah, I think like it comes down to like we're not productive when we're burned out, overwhelmed, tired. Sure, we're not. Like if you think about the symptoms of, say, burnout, or even like feeling overwhelmed, it's short fuse, disengaged, you're not as passionate about your job, your tasks, you're almost, tasks seem arduous that would be something you're really passionate about. That impacts our clinical practice, right? So if we're overworked and, really busy, we know it impacts our clinical practice. Therefore, it's up to us as a clinical thing for us to say, no, I have to stop. For the betterment of my patients, I need a break, and I need, to enjoy my life and have fun with my family and friends and all these other things. So for productivity, from a business, if you're looking at purely from business, like our productivity increases when we are rested and, like things like that. So I think it is really critical, and it needs to be the norm. And I think we as professions need to support, like that social support is really important. Like I find sometimes I get really frustrated when I look on Twitter, because it's like all these like people, oh, on my day off, I'm reading these 20 papers and I'm going to this extra thing. And like, well done, but like you're putting pressure on other people. And I definitely saw it when I was on maternity leave, like people, I wrote this paper when I was on maternity leave, and I'm like, wow, I was like minding my son. I did absolutely nothing today, but that was all I had to do, and that was hard enough.
I'd have to stop you and tell you that's the opposite of doing nothing, and
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So like, I think that kind of like constant slog thing, like we need to be better too at calling it out, and when we see it, and be like, like if there's a holiday, like especially when you're working internationally with lots of different groups, or with different people, like if it's a holiday in their country, just say, no, that's okay, we'll move it, it's fine, that's your day off. And like helping each other to feel like they can say it then. I think that's very important for us to do.
Siobhan, I think you said a couple things that so the perception that like something's going to happen or all is going to fall apart if I'm not there for one day, right? I think it's great that we think we're awesome. I think that's part of it, right? But you can't give what you don't have. And it is taking stock in how are my skills going to be? What is the attention that I can give these athletes if I have nothing to give? And so it's that self-reflection, it's the boundary setting that you had mentioned before. It's getting creative with how we're, like Abby, you mentioned, how are we going to, our support staff, how are we going to schedule them? How are we going to make this part of a model where it's not everybody all time 24/7 give until you can't give anymore. I mean, you guys both said those different things, and even the piece about how are we going to meet our athletes in a mental, if they're coming to us with a a mental health issue, again, we can't give what we don't have.
Yeah, it's just pouring from an empty bucket, right? It just doesn't work, and we've all touched on it in different ways, and without going down the rabbit hole of social media. But you know, Siobhan, you mentioned on my day off, look at all these things that I did. I've taken sort of a social experiment, and that's to ask people how they're doing. And when you ask how they're doing, I don't know what the percentage is in your world, but the first word is busy for people. And that's almost become like this badge of honor, is like, look how busy I am. Look at all the things that I'm doing. I don't know what it would be like to be in athletic training or therapy rooms or environments if everybody said, like, I'm really well. Like, I'm breathing well, I'm eating well, I'm sleeping well, I'm well rested, I'm giving my best while I'm here, and then I'm leaving it here and going, and I still got something left over at home. I'm giving my best there, and I'm doing all these pieces. But busy seems to be the badge of honor, you know, and I think we're starting to see that, and it's a bit of a watershed moment where we're flipping that switch and hopefully starting to take care of ourselves as part of the priority as well. How does a group work, Tanya? I'll spin it to you first, and then Siobhan, from your experience, and Abby, from your experience. We're here talking about it, but like, how do we live it? Do you actually do it, or do we just talk about it? You know, and so finding mentors, finding colleagues, finding ATs care. How do we formulate a group? What does a group feel like, Tanya, from your experience? You've done it, and you've set up a lot of really great things, and they're in place. And then Siobhan, Abby, wherever you want to take that after Tanya.
So the NATA is doing a great job, and we continue to try to push out mental health resources for athletic trainers, right? And kind of making it part of the normal dialogue versus something we do when we're in crisis or something you see. So the NATA website has a portal where any athletic trainer across the country, or even a colleague of an athletic trainer, can submit a form. And the idea of ATs Care in our interventions is that it's anonymous. So anybody can put somebody's name forward and, you know, hey, look, I have a colleague that's struggling. Here's why. Can you reach out to them? So then we reach out our team members based on geographically to support that individual. And so that can be done one-on-one, or we can actually pull in groups that maybe did experience a critical incident as an entire staff, or whatever that case may be. So our team is all trained, like I mentioned, through the ICISF, and that is something that people across the world can look into. The first course to take is assisting individuals in crisis. The ICISF does a really good job at teaching you how to set up teams. You know, what is the model for that? Certainly you can look at ATs Care and see and talk with us about the model that we've developed in the United States. But the ICISF was the platform for that, right? And so once we kind of established that training, then we set up our teams.
Amazing. And I think, again, like, the relevance, the resources are one thing, that having to go and click on something and read more things or do more of these, like, that's a lot. We've just talked about how busy we are, but the relevance of having somebody in the profession being the person who's responding, that for me is a massive comfort, to be able to turn and say, like, you actually get this. You actually get what we do on a daily basis. And so having that resource to say, you know, that's either lived it or is living it, or, you know, in the past, whatever the thing is, to provide advice of relevance through those resources. So really, really well done. I think it's amazing that it's happening and continues to grow. I think it'll be something that certainly Siobhan and Abby are nodding, and I'm over here writing down a whole bunch of notes, splinter groups, or just reaching out to you to connect on how can we do this better in different areas. Siobhan, anything to add on?
Yeah, I think what was great there about Tanya explained is that it really adds credibility to it, doesn't it? Because you have the ATs, they're the ones, you know, advising you. Because I know I work a lot of my research as well as in farmers, and that's a massive portion of it, is that they need to know that the person they're seeking help from gets it and gets the profession. And I think that's the same across all occupations, right? Same for us, because like if you're running your own business and someone's like, oh, you know, just take Friday off, and you're like, well, I have this I have to do this because if I lose that, I lose, the referrals from that group, and that, or I have to get this for the government done, or whatever those other aspects is. Like you need someone who understands the real life. And I think that's an excellent model. And I think that's something that came out of the research that we did. Actually, was one of the suggestions we made was that mentorship aspect. Having someone that you can contact who you can maybe just rant to, or actually gets it and can give you maybe advice about a difficult patient, or you want to go and say, change up things, you want to set your boundaries to run it past them to see what they think, all these other aspects. Just having that sounding board is so important, and it just sounds like a fantastic model.
Mhm.
Yeah, Abby, on your side, anything, I mean, do you utilize this? Is this something that's common in the UK? Do you have mentors, resources that you utilize?
I think as far as I'm aware, it's not something that we have over in the UK at the minute. I know, even looking at obviously the model that you just talked about as well, and we have, even from my own research, we was looking into one in Australia who seem like they're doing it fantastically at the minute. They had one very, very similar called Beyond Blue, I think it was called, for like health medical professionals, and giving you like a step-by-step guide of what you can introduce to your staff members for both mental health and well-being reasons. And that was something that I was blown away by, because for me, I don't know if we do have anything in the UK. If we do, I'd definitely be interested in looking into it. But for us, it just sounds like a perfect model that hopefully both the UK and Ireland can now start to follow, that we have a little bit of a template. Because I think, like we were saying before, we've previously had a little bit of a stigma surrounding both mental health and even mental health for athletic trainers and sports rehabbers. There's a little bit of a stigma surrounding that, like, right, we'll be fine, we don't need to get the help, we're the ones that are helping everyone else. But like you said, who's going to help us if we're not helping ourselves? So hopefully, like you said, yeah, it'll definitely be something that we can start to implement and bring in that model, and then tailor it to whatever we need, which hopefully will be perfect.
Abby,
Yeah.
I'll just add. So if you go to that ICISF, so International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, they have their teams listed, and I will say their teams are worldwide, not necessarily for athletic trainers, but potentially other professions, fire, police, etc., even air traffic controllers and railroads, because they find, train conductors have a high suicide rate, right? So for that profession, this is something that they're utilizing as well, or even, crisis responders in the Red Cross or whatever agencies, those types of things. So there is a potential that there are teams, maybe for other professions in your area, but even just making that original or initial contact with them to find out, like, hey, this is who I am, this is the profession that we are in, to tag along or to sit in or to start the dialogue of, that might be a great way to find it in your part of the world.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is it right here, is sort of connecting across the globe and creating conversation about this, having this conversation with experts in the field and sharing it globally, whether it is specific to, within athletic therapy or otherwise. There are resources and programs out there that we can pull bits and pieces to. And then again, like that, the credibility and relevance, I think, is a really massive piece. And I'm sort of 15 plus years into this, and I didn't think about this in years 1 through 10 of my career. But now that I'm in years 15, like, this is cumulative stress. This is cumulative, I don't want to call it trauma, but like, this is cumulative over 15 years, right? So that critical incident that I never attended to 6 years ago is still buried somewhere in my psyche or somewhere in my experience. And so not addressing that, formally or thoroughly, may lead to things down the road, right? And just sort of, again, the cumulative norm of 80-hour weeks. Yeah, you can do it when you're 25, and you can do it when you're 26 and 27. But when you start to get to 40 and you're still dependent on doing that same thing for those same number of hours, when, as Siobhan mentioned, family life changes or personal life changes, or you need to move to a new model of being self-employed during a pandemic, like, these things are really, really tough to navigate if you don't have resources. So this is the purpose of the conversation, to connect like-minded people in like-minded fields across the globe and sharing resources. So I'll just sort of throw it as an open-ended question, and I don't want to take too long of anybody's time, but for the most part, to highlight this, that these programs are in place, that this is really important to take care of yourself as a practitioner, and that there are other practitioners that are truly relatable and doing a lot of really great work to build either rapport within ATs Care, or the research behind it, or in football clubs in the UK, where we're building this in as a consideration. Really, really amazing work. So I'll open it. I know, Tanya, you shared a little bit of the worldwide resource. Any resources that you would direct people to that come top of mind? Anybody, feel free to jump in. And I think what we'll do is we'll break this eventually off into individual conversations with each one of you, because Abby, I'd love to dive into what you're doing and how you're implementing this with the athletes at Rochdale. And Siobhan, I'd love to get into your research and talk about pull pieces from where farmers are doing things, or where athletes are doing things, or dive more into burnout. And obviously, Tanya, ATs Care, and share this out across Canada. I know there is splinter groups and things like that in Canada too, but we can all learn from each other in these pieces. So I'll openly invite you to do an individual session on the podcast, certainly in the future, but we could be here all day, and I know some of you have to get to bed, and some of us have to continue our other work days. But resources, feel free. Tanya, maybe starting with you.
Yeah, so like I said, the ATs Care, there's a pretty huge list of resources on the NATA website, and it's available to even non-members of the NATA. So you'll see some of our suicide hotlines, our mental health resources on that page. There's also some self-care, like cards that you can print for yourself, for your staff, kind of mental health check-ins for after crisis. That's probably where I would start. There's also testimonial videos and kind of how we got our roots, that type of thing in there. And certainly our committee and our commission is listed, so please don't hesitate to reach out to one of us. If you have questions, I know our entire commission at the NATA level and beyond would be happy to assist anybody in creation of something of equal.
Awesome. Siobhan, anything that comes to mind in terms of resources on your side?
Yeah, so from the Irish perspective, we don't have anything athletic therapy specific, but obviously we have the general kind of advice we give people. Like, we've Mental Health Ireland is an organisation in Ireland, and then obviously we'd advise people to go to their general practitioner if they're struggling. But it's definitely something, after hearing Tanya talk there, I think it's definitely something we should consider having from an athletic therapy perspective, even like a handout or something like that for our own members. So definitely, I think it's something we need to focus on and get going.
Beautiful. And Abby, anything that you use, I guess, specific? We do have lots of athletic therapy, athletic training students as well that work with us, and even athletes, that I deal with, or that different people's communities deal with. Any resources that you provide, either for athletes or in general, that you utilize?
Yeah, so we have obviously very similar to what Siobhan was saying. We have like mind charities and stuff like that, which is obviously something that we do use quite often for our athletes. But like specifically, we do have like the PFA, which is like the Professionals Football Association, which do provide a range of support with psychology support in terms of like counselling, a 24-hour helpline, self-help resources for those academy players, and also all the way up to professional footballers as well. So that is definitely something that I would advise any grassroots footballer all the way up to your professional footballers to try and use, because I know even mental health in sport, specifically football, is something that is not often talked about. It's getting a lot better, but the stigma is always still there. So they do offer that one-to-one counselling situations as well, which is definitely beneficial for our athletes. So yeah, that would be what I'd point into.
Amazing. And for all of you, thank you for your time. I know this was quick because it's a panel, but I think the panel brings a lot, and it adds for some dynamic conversation, and certainly some thinking points, and obviously some collaboration in the future. I think we've aligned across the globe here. Creating awareness is a big one. And then once we're aware, what we do with it is the next step. For those listening out there, as a therapist, as a trainer, as a partner, as a whoever, as a human being, if it's not asking for help, then please just tell somebody that you're struggling, and there are resources, and we can help each other moving forward in this space as well, as noted throughout this conversation and many others. And keep an eye on yourself and do those regular check-ins, and keep an eye on those that you work with, because we spend a lot of time together, we spend a lot of time in the space, and we know the signs and symptoms of burnout and mental duress. And so just checking in, and if busy is always the answer, maybe it's time for a little bit of a change if that's the norm. And really, you've highlighted some amazing things. This is Let's Chat. It's the World Federation of Athletic Training and Therapy's official podcast. I look forward to having each and every one of you on again, if not in a panel and a longer conversation, then in an individual conversation. Please be aware as well that the 15th to 17th of May this year, the World Congress is in Tel Aviv, and we look forward to being there as part of that live from World Congress. And then moving forward, connecting on important topics and amazing people and practitioners. So Tanya, Siobhan, Abby, I really, truly appreciate your support in doing this, connecting in this, and in all the work that you're doing. I'll leave it to each of you to a few parting words, and we'll jump off from there. Again, it's Let's Chat. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on the WFAT website. Really look forward to getting this conversation out to the world in this case. So Tanya, over to you for some final words. Thank you all again for your time.
Just thank you, James. Thanks for creating this space to make this happen. I think you hit the nail on the head. Take care of each other, take care of your colleagues, take care of those around you, but most importantly, you got to take care of yourself first, and we should put ourselves at the top of that list.
Siobhan, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been so enjoyable. It flew. And I suppose for me, I guess really just take stock. What is your priorities? What do you want out of life? And are you working towards that? And we don't have to be working 80-hour weeks. There's nothing to tell us that we have to do that. So you can, there's now, while that's what you've done in the past, doesn't mean how you have to continue into the future. So I think use, listening today as a chance to think about yourself and how you're getting on, and is it the right direction you want to go in?
Abby, last but not least.
Yeah, I feel like I've come in with the really, really easy one to just reiterate everything what has been said so far. And a really big thank you to letting me be on this podcast and giving me the opportunity to both expand my mind and expand obviously all of the listeners as well. But yeah, exactly what everyone's already said. Take care of yourselves, and yeah, look after yourselves and keep smiling will be my main ones.
Amazing. So we take stock, we keep smiling, and we take care of ourselves first and foremost, and that's how we take care of each other. It's WFAT's official podcast. It's Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. This is our session. We're wrapping up here. Please check out the other sessions, and we are creating community through this, connecting globally, making new friends, making new colleagues, and certainly identifying areas of adaptability and ways that we can continue to grow as a profession. So from all of us on this side, all the best, and we will talk soon. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com, CONSULT@firststartherapy.com, on Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.